Hey, this is Sridhar from wpdevdesign.com. In this screencast, I want to show how we can use Oxygen to build a page that has a rotating slideshow as a background and with some text on the top overlaid in the middle of the page. So this is the page that we are going to build today. As you can see, the images in the background keep rotating automatically with a fade effect, and there is a div that has some text and call to action button overlaid on the top. So I'm going to create a new page and just call this background slideshow, and I want to start with nothing. I do not want to inherit the main template that has the header and the footer, so I'll just select none here and click on edit with Oxygen. Okay, let's bring up the structure, and the first thing that we'll do is to add a div, and we'll set the height of this div to 100% of the viewport height. So I'll go to advanced, size and spacing, and for the height I'll set this to 100 VH. Okay, now inside this div we need to place two elements. The first is a slider and the second is the call to action div that should be overlaid on the top. So first I'm going to add the slider. Okay, and let's go to configuration, and we do not want the arrows and I do not want the dots, and I want the animation to be fade. And let's select the first slide and set the image as a background rather than inserting an image element. The reason being that we want the image to take up the full height and width, basically expand the entire browser window, and this is possible only if it's set as a background with a size of cover. So I'm going to set the image as the background for this first slide. And we'll set the background size to cover, and we'll set it to not repeat, and we'll do the same thing for the other slides as well, except we of course put different images. Okay. Now let's save this and take a look at this on the front end. And nothing appears. Why is that? Okay, let's inspect the source. Okay, so as you can see, the slider element, it's getting 0 height in the browser. So let's set the height of the slider to 100% so that it hopefully takes up the full height of the viewport. So I'm going to select the slider, go to advanced, and set the height to 100%. Save it. Okay, let's see. So the slider element is 100% of the viewport, but the class inside, which is this a div that has a class of unslider, and also there are various other child elements which are all having a 0 height. So what we can do is, for this div that has a class of unslider, and also all the child elements inside this div, will set the height to 100%. So I'm going to select the body element and add a code block. We'll just comment out the PHP, and in the CSS I'm going to say unslider, and anything inside unslider, set the height to 100%. Okay, save it, come back and reload. Okay, that looks better. So we got the image which is a slideshow, but then there is some padding at the left and right. So if we inspect the divs, you can see that the div that has a class of unslider, it has a padding of 40 pixels on the left and the right. So let's remove this by saying unslider padding 0 on all the sides. Okay, so what we have now is a full height of the viewport, and then inside that we have the slider which has rotating images. Okay, we need to set this to autoplay, so I'm going to go to configuration and select autoplay. Okay, so let's add the call to action which should be floating in the middle of this page. So I'm going to select the div, and for the sake of simplicity I'm just going to use an element from the library. Okay, so we have selected that, but it's not appearing, rather it actually appears below. So what we want to do is we want to put this absolutely position on top of this image. So I'm going to set the position to relative for this div, and for my CTA I'm going to set the position to absolute, 50% from the top and 50% from the left. Okay, it's still not appearing because we need to change the z index. We need to set a z index of probably 0, 1, I mean anything higher than 0, and hopefully that will make it appear on top of the images. Okay, so we have the div, there is the slider, and this is the call to action. Okay, the problem that I see is that it's got a section. I do not want a section because a section will have its own inner wrap which has paddings and all that stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just get the div and directly put it like that and get rid of the section. Okay, so for this div we need to now set the position to absolute, 50% from the top and 50% from the left. Save it, come back and reload. Okay, So let's see what's going on. So in the Chrome inspector, I'm going to give this a z index of 1, and it is not appearing. So I'll just put some large value like say 1000, and now it appears. So let's get this down to whatever is actually required. So 10 it works. So if I change this to 9, it does not. So this div needs a z index of at least 10, so it appears on top of the slider images. So I'm gonna go to custom CSS and give this a z index of 10. Okay. We have given a top of 50% and left value of 50% for this div, but in order to actually truly center it, we need to pull it to the left by 50% of the width of the box, and also pull it to the top by 50% of the height of this box. So the way to do that is by writing this code that says translate this by minus 50% in both x and y directions. And let's give a width of say some 600 or 800 pixels to this div. So I'm going to go to advanced size and spacing, and instead of 100%, I will say 800 pixels. Okay, save it. And let's reduce the transparency of this by going to background, and for the background color I'll just give RGBA. That's too less. How about 8? Yeah, or maybe 7. 8 is good. Okay, so there you go. So this is how we set the slider element in Oxygen as a background with a div which is overlaid on the top. Thank you. Bye.